All right, everybody, welcome back to the Scroll of Thoth. After many technical difficulties where Google tried to fuck us, we are finally on the air. Hooray!
Hooray.
And
All right.
we once again have our beloved Jason, Fred Rosentra L, and also a very special guest with us, Erica Grimes, member of the OEM and badass motherfucking witch. Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi,
Yeah.
guys.
All right. Hey, glad you're here. Awesome.
So let's
Good
start
to be
out
here.
with Erica. Just kind of let us know a little bit of your background and how you got into magic and what led you to own.
Right on. I was raised in a really strict religious family, and up until a certain point, it wasn't serving me anymore. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, and got to a point where finally I met my mother-in-law, who started showing me things like light working, alternative healings, your Reikis, your meditations, and things like that. And through that, I found a lot of good in that, but it wasn't everything. It wasn't bringing a balance to some of the other needs that I needed spiritually, I suppose. And so I started looking out and reaching out, and met a close friend of mine that showed me chaos magic, and I thought that sounded like things that would fit my needs. I dabbled in some kind of different pagan beliefs, some witchcraft, not really knowing what I was doing or what I was really getting into. Just needed some kind of guidance and direction, and over the few years working with her, started realizing that definitely ritualized magic is something that is important to me, as well as also doing magic with my community and with close friends, and yeah, so that's kind of basically it. And then a couple years ago, I was invited to come hang out at Jason's with our late friend Dr. Dave, and that happened to be the very first OEM meeting. And
Trial by fire.
yeah,
You
and
got to meet Dr. Dave. I never got to meet the guy. He died before I got to meet him.
it was
Yeah, well,
yeah, well,
Erica was around a little bit before you in the EMK scene, my friend. But that's
Wow.
yeah.
go-
So I mean, after
goes
that,
to something.
started going to Babylon and meeting all of you cool cats, and things have been awesome since.
Cool.
Great.
I'm going to tell a little story before we get started. So it kind of hit a point where I started, writing more elaborate rituals and stuff like that. And I knew that I wasn't the person to actually perform the ritual. So we were having one of our gatherings, and I enlisted Erica to do a necromantic invocation, and she blew my fucking mind. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
Oh.
I'll never
awesome.
forget that one. That was good.
So, yeah. So various topics have been suggested to us for tonight. Is there any place you guys want to jump off at?
No, man, you got the list there. Why don't you kick us off? Kick us off there, buddy.
Well, let's then follow up with our last episode. So, sorry, our last episode was about drugs and how we espouse the virtues of drugs and how drugs are used in EMK and all that sort of thing.
Sure.
But it has been brought to our attention that we do need to discuss the other side of drugs.
Yeah, right.
How they can be
Something-
detrimental.
Yeah, of course. And this is, obviously, like around the subject, this is something that has come up like in our discussions lately, and I think it's kind of the couplet, like magic done without, but also magic impaired by drugs. It's kind of like two sides of the same coin. Like, and what do you? I mean, and where do you draw the line at like impaired? What is magic impaired and not enhanced by or essentially being done along with chemognosis? And I think that's pretty nuanced. individual group to decide. But I mean, the main things are, you know, if you're, you know, if you're causing trouble in your flow rituals, I mean, if you're incapable of functioning, you know, through a ritual or to understand a ritual, and like this is not something that, like, of course, you know, like well, oh, I'm obviously drugs, you know, done with, you know, magic done without drugs isn't, you know, hasn't had this problem, but like all the major magical organizations, groups, and large gatherings that I've been to, there's been myriad problems with basically just people getting too wasted. You know, I might have been there for some of those, you know, but the majority, you know, I mean, like I've heard tales going back spanning years, and not just organizations that I'm a member of, but you know, other people are, you know, have you know, that I'm not a member of, and you know, it's certainly, you know, chemognosis and the idea of, you know, the social aspect of, you know, drinking with your friends and stuff is always going to come with magic. And it's always kind of been there in all the groups over the years. But I think, yeah, it's important to kind of come out and say, like, something that, you know, overindulgence is never going to lead to anything good.
He'll keep talking if you let him.
I think it's important to mention, too, that at what point does whatever you partake in take away respect from the process and what you're doing and working on. And like you said, I mean, when everyone can't focus, when you can't explain the things, you know, the process of the ritual or whatever the purpose is you guys to get together, it's almost disrespectful to a point. And
right, of course.
And that's not cool either, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, there's one thing. It's one thing when people accidentally a little bit later into the evening, you know, I mean, if you know, it's kind of a social gathering, and you know, it's one thing to kind of let the night slip away and have it be like 45 minutes, an hour between rituals. The next thing you know, you're trying to do real late ones, and everybody's a little bit sloppy. And that, you know, that's kind of just like, hey, tighten up the ropes, stick to your scheduling, you know, make a schedule at the beginning of the night, try and start early, get that kind of stuff done, you know, so you can have that kind of let loose social stuff later in the night, not have to worry about getting the magic done, you know. But it's one thing to like get shifted back and for people to get a little bit sloppy, and like that's like where there's improvement. But I think where the real issue is, especially in group magic, is when we're talking about extreme examples that are wasted, that they have to be babysat all night long. And I've seen this in Europe, all over the world. I've seen it in dozens of different meetings where people just can't handle their shit, and it takes 2 or 3 other to like hold, you know, deal with that person basically because they're so wasted. And you know, that's kind of like that's when you're starting to get into, like, for me at least, when we talk about OM, you know, when you're talking about like, well, you know, is this somebody that can't be around, is going to be disruptive to what you're, like a serial disruptor.
Yeah.
And, you know, God bless her heart, some guilty of overindulging, and I think, you know, in retrospect, I think, you know, a lot of blind eye was turned to her overindulging much too often, and of course now, you know, we know kind of like what road that leads down. And you know, if we're being honest about ancestral magic and honoring stuff and like looking back at stuff, you know, that's definitely there. You know, letting people go that far and too far, you know, that's not something just be like, oh, okay, you know, if you're waking up in the next morning and you can't remember the night before, that's a much greater foul than, you know, we're trying to explain a ritual and do it after people are going and not paying attention. It just is a little bit harder to get done and a little sloppy. You know, that's kind of like foul strike, you know. But like last night, yeah, we sat all night. Now I don't remember the entire, quite a bit a different type of thing. And I certainly want to, you know, I think that's the distinction that's important, is you really got to be careful. People have to be careful, you know, because if you know, people can get hurt.
Yeah.
And if you let it go too far, it can be a health and safety issue for everybody involved. Yeah, what do you think, James?
Well, you know, every tribe has to make their own rules, obviously, you know, so they set their limits. the Sabbat is a party. That's a given, you know, and you're supposed to be enjoying yourselves, and you're supposed to be a little bit altered, but you've got to have limits and that are agreed upon. You know, for me, there are certain drugs that don't belong at all. Heroin, methamphetamine, the really hard stuff.
Crap.
Doesn't
Agreed.
Shooting
Yeah.
any drug. Shooting any drug, period.
Anything with a fucking
Shooting a
needle.
drug. If you're shooting a drug, or, I mean, generally, if you're freebasing some type of drug, I'm going to call that one pretty much either of those things is you're probably stepping out of the spiritual and more into the
You're pretty safe if you keep it to your alcohol and your hallucinogenics and your marijuana. And
yep, that's pretty much where you want to be staying. That's exactly right.
That's definitely where I stick it.
Yeah, you want to stick it around.
So that's just
kinda,
right off.
Be careful.
Don't bring that shit to our fucking group. And then after that, you know, it's important for everyone to know their limits.
Yeah.
When I first came to my first meeting, I consciously decided I'm not going to take any drugs. I want to see what this is like sober. I want to make sure I know what I'm getting into and I know these people. And, you know, there were substances all around me. It was very tempting. But I was like, no, I do this sober. And then I gradually add stuff on. And by gradually adding stuff on, you know, don't be a fucking drug vacuum and just start taking everything right off the bat. You got to take this stuff separately and know what it does to you, because it does something different to every person. You've got to know your own limits. I mean, you know, plenty of people out there that, you know, they can sit there and sip on a drink all night and they're fine. And there's other people, you have one, you have two, and you're done. You're fucked up.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, I think this might lead into another one of the topics that I kind of had in mind that goes along with this. And that's some reciprocal responsibility of, you know, I guess the host, essentially. Like if you are dealing with, especially with psychedelics, you know, people that have not experienced before, and you have experience in this, and there is a responsibility on you to make sure that, you know, you essentially, you know, care of that person. You know, you don't want to take, I mean, like, you know, when acid started out, the pranksters, those guys, I mean, they used to just pull up, you know, a psychedelic school bus painted outside a Beatles concert and just hand strangers cups of Kool-Aid laced with LSD. Just, here you go, you know, teenagers, large amounts of LSD. And when people would freak out, they would put the microphones in front of them and broadcast it out of loudspeakers. I mean, you know, people used to go way out. And even those guys, you know, Kesey and those guys, after a while, started to realize, well, man, maybe this isn't like, you know, the most moral thing that we're doing here. Like, this isn't exactly right. I mean, you've got to, you know, if somebody is new to those experiences, you don't want to, you don't just give somebody a massive amount of a psychedelic to see what happens. You know, there's a moral implication there, like a shamanistic implication, you know. I mean, and we're running into this now. You're seeing these people go down to South America in droves to have this ayahuasca experience. And you've got all these, you know, shamans down there, you know, running these workshops, and like all these reports are coming back. Sexual molestation and people getting taken advantage of by, like, basically just these skeezy guys that live on the edge. Like, oh, that's cool, man. I know how to make this tea. I'll just start up a cottage business without any kind of real, like, you know, backing in the spirituality itself. You know, and you've got a small core of the actual Indians themselves that are like, they're just whole. So I think there's, like, you know, there's that shamanistic principle, you know, on the other side of the.
I'm going to cut you off because there's something you mentioned here, and this is the reason why I'm so glad to have Erica on the show, because it has been such a sausage party here.
Right.
You know, that is a definite danger that I think women think more about and are more subject to, do you have a party partner? What do you do to mitigate those risks?
Well, for example, I was thinking about, the first time I went to the OEM meeting, and it was actually the first time I had ever taken a hit of acid. And the thing is, though, I was brought by a mutual friend who I've spent a lot of time with. She knows me very well and could essentially, as could babysit me and also kind of see me through the process to help me out. She also would know better than to give me too much. And so with my partner in crime, my friend, it helped so that while I was in this new situation and learning how it is that we get together and do these rituals and have a magical night together. I had backup. I had someone that I could count on. I was in a place with new people that I didn't know, but having that buddy system, magical buddy and buddy for experimenting, we went in, she helped me, so I went into this process, so not alone, definitely.
And I think on our side, number one, we have to be aware that it does happen to men, even though it's much less frequent. So be aware of that. But also, I think, guys need to employ a buddy system where it's like, they're hitting on some girl and it's like, hey, buddy, she's way too messed up right now for you to be thinking about.
Or she's clearly not interested, or it looks like she's uncomfortable, Yeah,
exactly. So it's really up to us as men to help out with this.
An anti-wingman, if you will.
Anti-wingman.
Yeah. Well, here we go. Now we're talking about social constructs of OM and like what are the moral aspects of Order of Emergent Magi. What are our vibes that we put out into the universe to try and alter society in a more positive way? So I think you guys are towards more philosophical grounds there, but I like it.
That's what I love about OM, though, is that we do talk about these things. We're front and center about this stuff. We want to have a morality. We want to make this something for groups of people to live together.
Nothing is true. Everything is permitted in OM. I read a recent part of the book, James. I wanted to bring this up. That talked about belief being a temple, right? And I like the analogy that there are no, the chaos temples, chaos temples might fly, nothing is true, everything is permitted, banners in chaos temples throughout the world for eternity, for 1,000 years, so shall it be. But of EMK and Emergent Magic, there are no banners that say Lashaya Terikul Shaya Yujaz. There is nothing is true, everything is permitted. Those banners have either been torn down and burned or cut apart and woven into a new type of tapestry in order to keep chaos incorporated in such temple. So that would be another analogy of the difference between EMK, I think, and chaos magic. That's just a tangent. I wanted to say I really like that part of the book that you worked on most recently, James. It's good stuff.
Thank you. So, and I didn't get to finish that chapter. There's going to be more to it, and
can't wait to read it, man.
The further part of that is, you've got to have a moral center. You've got to have something there that's with the group. And where the chaos actual aspect comes in, what we did borrow from chaos magic is while that each person, in EMK is bringing their own paradigm to the group when they perform ritual. Someone might do ritual in one paradigm, someone might do ritual in another paradigm. And we accept that at that time. We still keep our core beliefs. And one of the reasons why we do it that way is because we do not want to fall into the trap of orthodoxy. We do not want to fall into the trap of saying, you can only do things a certain way, and it's just our way, and fuck all the heretics. So
well, I mean, more than that, you don't want to be saying this way is better than the other ways. Period. You don't want to be like, well, this technique is the more superior technique. It's just it's just different way of approaching it. And again, like like we talk about all the time, like of the good magicians saying emergent magic. Like everybody that's been doing magic for 20 years or 15 or 20 years, consistently, that is actually applying themselves, that has a gift for magic, is going to be doing emergent magic. They're going to have aspects of emergence. The better magicians are going to have more emergent aspects, not necessarily be EMK magicians per se, or like associate with OM, but there's going to be, like, in the most advanced practitioners of each of the schools of magic, you're going to see the most emergence in the best of those people. And we bring up Candelo here, Candelo, who worked with Dr. Dave, who's a Palo practitioner, and the idea of him talking about homosexuals and how it's not part of Palo that they don't have souls, and all this other kind of nonsense, because somewhere essentially the reasoning, and I listened, this has been a while back, we brought this up before, was that somewhere along your tree of life, somewhere the ancestors, there was somebody that was. So, I mean, obviously, it's disrespectful and stupid. Now, that's not something that's taught specifically through Palo. I know that. That's something that he's coming up with because it's an emergent aspect, because he's practicing that paradigm at the highest level of how that paradigm can be practiced. Therefore, he's has all these emergent to his work, and that goes with everybody.
Well, I will say that I kind of call it the Fight Club principle. It's on the tip of everyone's tongue, but we're just the first persons to say it. And there are,
right.
emergent magic techniques that a lot of people have been using for a while. We're just the first ones pointing them out.
Right. And the chaos magicians. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I want to take advantage of having Erica here and have her perspective on what attracts you to EMK, and what do you think EMK is?
EMK, to me, it is the magic that emerges from your connection to your ancestors, your community, everyone around you, your personal background and everyone else's personal background coming together for a collective purpose or a collective goal. Yeah, I know that I couldn't put a name on the magic that I began doing, and I knew that I felt a connection to my ancestors. I knew that I liked using rituals. I knew that my altars were important to me. I knew that little things that I had collected for whatever reason, knickknacks here and there. Now, whether they be these important crystals or stones, or whether it's just a rock I found outside, little things to me were those were a part of my magic. And learning that, feeling that connection between people, understanding, my magic might be a little different from your magic, but when we get together, it becomes powerful and it becomes strong. To me, emergent magic is, that flow of, I guess, that collective consciousness, if you will, between our ancestors down to the teachers, and then down to the students, and then beyond that to the people that one day may find this on their path. And I think it's just that cycle, and then teachers one day will become the ancestors, the students the teachers, and so on, and then all of that collective knowledge just will keep cycling through. And I think that's ultimately what EMK is for me. It's just the community aspect, all of us using our own backgrounds, and for a better purpose and for the greater good of all of us and our tribe.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why it's so hard to describe EMK, because if you haven't done group magic, you don't know it, and it's something that's a vital part of the system. And all of our listeners out there, if you're not doing group magic, find someone. Start looking around. There's events. There's something near you to check into. And
I know personally, I really learned a lot more when I started working with other people too. You know, there's only so much you can learn by yourself or in books. Also, that experience will help you level up as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, sure. You know, just it's just kind of dry knowledge without actually practicing, and that's important to, like, you know, do your meditations, do your banishings, and get kind of all those chops in your focusing stuff, you know, before you kind of go out, and then that's yourself to kind of fine tune. But yeah, I mean, when magic really comes out, the stuff that's getting, you know, the real fun stuff, that's all in the group. You know, you can't do full on possessing rituals, you know, with yourself. I mean, you can, but you can't possibly have the same result because there's nobody there to interrogate you when you're full on possessed by Nyla, whatever you happen to be working with at the time. You know, so yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great. I thought that was a really good, very sublime explanation of EMK, Erica. Very good.
Yeah,
I think that's been one of our better ones right there. Now we've come up with, I don't think we've talked yet about magic informed by magic, which is kind of one of our breakthroughs in defining essentially emergent magic as magic informed by magic. And I'm really I'm really happy with that title. I mean, it's kind of, you know, it's saying what you just said in less words.
Yeah,
you know,
most definitely.
Yeah, that was a process of us trying to kind of boil down to as succinctly as possible some of the EMK principles. And that, you know, to me encompassed the entire principle of learning how to do what you do through magic.
And the rituals that you do are like, you know, they're snowballed from the ritual before, really kind of rather than the chaos magic approach where you might do it for a little while and then just take it all down and then redo it. It's just a little bit different of an approach.
You know, also magic informed by magic. That also represents the magic of your ancestors, and the magic of your teachers, and the magic of your students, and it's that flow also. Magic informed by magic.
Exactly.
You know?
Yes, the informed by magic is like that. I mean, that is almost, that can be read as a direct shout out to the ancestors, if you will. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of people who read books and say, you know, let's do the rituals in the books. And then when they're done with that, they go get another book. There are some people out there who write magical rituals completely on an intellectual level and never really incorporate the things that had come before into their next ritual, or at least incorporate a general understanding of magic into your next ritual. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, this kind of continuous line, but you need to know what you learned to add and add and add. And that always comes through magic. And, you know, everyone needs a foundation. Everyone needs somewhere to start. And that could be Thelema. That could be chaos magic. That could be the Gutter Bible. You know, some kind of foundation to start with. And hopefully that is something that has enough mystery and enough to explore in it to start doing magic. And then after that, you need to set that aside or go back to it when you need to. But your magic should start progressing from what you've already learned through ritual.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've talked a little bit about that, like the progression of magic over time. What else, Jamesy boy? We got any this week?
Do we have any questions this week? Well, let me take a look here. Unfortunately, with our technical difficulties, a lot of people jumped out. So let's see here. We've got comments, but no questions.
That's all good. Did we have something else for? We should. What else we got for Erica now that we got her on?
Well, I want to know more about her personal practice. You said you worked with ancestors and that sort of thing. when you approach magic, do you have a certain set of principles or feelings that you have when you approach your magic?
My magic is very intuitively based. I do not have a very deep book knowledge. That's one thing. One of my goals is to work on get more of a book knowledge. But I am, like I said, intuitive and what is the word when you impulsive. I'm intuitive and impulsive, and when I'm feeling it, that's when I just go for it. Whether whether I understand what I'm doing, whether it's I think I need to save this item, this totem. Who knows why? I'll figure it out later. Keep it, you know. Or I feel the need to talk to this person about something. Just gonna go for it, you know. And all of those things come together, and later on, I'll start getting a bigger picture of you know, okay, this is what I'm being called to work on. This is what I'm being called to focus on. You guys know I have my project, the Heroine Demon Project. And
I'd like to talk about that a little bit. Like we've got a couple public things that we're going to be planning for that's going to be coming up here in Rockford. But why don't you tell us a little bit about the background with that? I'd like you hear a little bit about that. I think it's a great project, you know.
yeah.
Essentially a project, you know, to you know fight the heroin demon. You know, we're all aware of like the opiate epidemic that's going on right now. So yeah, fill us in a little bit about that.
Kind of sum it up too, because it's a very long, detailed story. But essentially, a few months back, well, actually back in November, a few of my friends, all in 1 month, I had learned were not only involved in the heroin culture, they were also using it. 2 of them passed away within 2 weeks of each other. I had found out a close family member of mine was also involved in it and using. And all of a sudden, you know, I'm wondering why does it feel like I'm surrounded by this environment, this community, this culture that I want nothing to do with? And I always have this philosophy that when something's brought to your attention, that's when you have to address it. And so I knew that I wanted to do something, and so I talked with some friends and tried to figure out, you know, there's some kind of working here, you know, wanting to be humble and knowing I have no intention of taking on the cartel. We always say that, but I was like, what's a more reasonable or
harm reduction,
tangible thing that I can work on? And it's, I think, you know, first I'm going to deal with my own healing and do those tragedies. And then I think next I'm going to talk to people about how they feel related to it, how they have connections to it, because everyone knows someone who has been involved with it or they've seen things. And so once I started talking about it with people, I started realizing everyone has this connection to it. And it started forming this entity, this heroin demon, you know, this thing that, you know, obviously possesses its user, takes it over, changes its life, and ultimately can, you know, destroy its resources, its relationships, things like that. So after I started talking with people about it, I realized, well, what comes after that? Well, I think working with the community. And so ultimately, I found the intention of this project was to promote healing and awareness of the heroin epidemic, promote healing and awareness with yourself, through your friends and community, and ultimately on a widespread level. And I think that for me, magically, is a more tangible way to produce results.
Yeah,
and I think that up until this point, it has.
Yeah, I think it's a really, you know, it's really cool working. The way that we kind of approached it was to do a series of workings to discover the name of the heroin demon, essentially through magical ritual. You know, given the name of a demon, it gives you power over it. You know, we work with different talismans, you know, a discarded needle from, you know, a lost friend, did bindings with that, and a series of stuff. And we're going to kind of step that up and kind of move that out into the community more outside of, I mean, it's been a public working at Babylon with quite a few people. You know, we've been doing it in our group here and groups kinds in Kansas City. But yeah, to do it kind of a more public thing, and I'm excited about that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about when we were doing that? We were Mama Spooky, which is your kind of Voodoo type entity. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the background with that and how that came to be?
Yeah, when I started this project, I was really fearful of you know, doing a ritual that or having a project that would backlash on me. And I wanted to, be respectful of this entity, this thing, the heroin demon. So I wanted to kind of create an alter ego, and that's what I thought of it as the time, this alter ego I could um, that I could become, and then after our ritual, after a certain time, I could step away from this person and feel safe about my working. Ultimately, I started finding out, once connecting and meeting Mama Spooky and learning her name, I started realizing that she actually is more of this. She's like this maternal ancestral person to me, a collective maternal ancestral person. And I've when we first met her, she taught me that, when we asked her, who are you, or when do we see you? And she says that I'm here when you are afraid. And when you take that step, one further step, that's when I will be here to nurture and to take care of you. And so she's really been a leading part of, ultimately, it is a part of myself, but it's very intriguing. It's very,
Just
very
kind of like
fascinating.
egregore type little thing, and it feels very ancestral and feels very genuine, and yeah, just a great example of some really well done creative magic, Erica.
You know what I love about this
Thank you.
whole story is that you started out with, I haven't read many books, and yet what you described was just like some perfect classical examples of magical technique that's written down by the masters. It's like start out with working in the real world to get your results, which is what a whole lot of people don't do, who miss out. They just turn to magic immediately. Number two, trying to find the name of an entity so that you can control it. Classic technique. Number three, doing an invocation of a more powerful spirit so that you have agency and control over the lesser spirit you're trying to work with. Those are all classical techniques, and it's beautiful to see how they come about organically.
What's beautiful too is, with emergent magic, this wasn't a process I was aware of, and I had to go to my friends to ask for advice. When I did have this needle that was given to me accidentally, and I actually brought it to Jason and was like, I feel like I should use this, but I don't know exactly how or the safest way to do it. And immediately, through reaching out to my friends and through their magic and their knowledge of magic, they were able to come back and help me so that I could go about things in a safe way, health and safety, of course, and health and magical safety also. So It's just, I think it's another really good example of emergent magic, reaching out to your friends and their knowledge so that you can ultimately build and grow your knowledge and magical technique. And now I've come into this big working that I think is influenced and impressing a lot of people, and I think it's got a lot of potential. And yeah, the work is not done. The work is never done.
Absolutely. And this is like the core. This is kind of like the core great first working. When we're talking about making your community better, and working, kind of locally with this is a great example. This is the kind of work that OM, takes a lot of pride in, and is the kind of, it's really the important stuff. Bringing people together, doing a healing of the community, because all the communities in America right now are pretty ravaged by this entity. There's like you said, there's nobody that isn't at least one or two people removed from somebody who's either died, been in rehab, from opioids, opiate abuse at this point. So everybody has been affected by it. The president's making statements about it. It's front page news. It's very much in the public eye. So that, the fact that we're kind of standing, that we can do, magically that's a little bit different, thinking outside the box that, you know, can make a difference over time in a community just by getting people talking about stuff.
You know,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I feel compelled to throw a PSA in here. Hey, kids, don't use used needles. Don't do that. If you need to
don't do
draw,
that.
if you need to draw blood during a ritual, you can get these little diabetic needles, what diabetics use to test their blood sugar. They're really cheap. Everyone can have their own. They come sterile.
They're called Lancet.
Lancets, yes. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I was gonna say, I think with Mama Spooky included in this project, I think something that she's really representing, not just for me personally as, you know, maternal ancestral help, but I think she represents in this whole working of choosing life. And I think that that's something, a message, you know, and how appropriate with her, you know, for an addict to, it's scary to step out of that life that you know. It's scary to the idea of not using those drugs. It's scary to have to fix all of the problems that you've ultimately created in your life. And I think Mama Spooky is encouraging you to choose life, you know, take that step out into that fearful place, and then she will be there to nurture you and to help you out. And ultimately, I hope that everyone can use her magically as an ancestral being to assist them with that healing process.
Does Mama Spooky have any set symbols yet?
She does not have any set symbols yet. That she does have a main tool. It is a wand that we've been working through a systems of bindings. No set symbols yet. No, I guess that would probably be the next thing to work on. I'm going to expand on her separately with the Heroin Demon Project, but also separately for my own magical growth, and see how else she can help me in different ways of my life.
So, folks out
there's
there,
a lot of
the
potential
name.
Initial working. I think there's a lot of potential there with that entity. Very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of why I invite.
So, what do you think, James?
I'm saying I want to kind of invite people to try to work with this entity if they need it, if they're feeling, you know, like they can't get out of a situation, no matter what it is, whether heroin or a bad home life or whatever. You know the name now. You can call on Mama Spooky, and I hope that spirit comforts you. And we try to grow that. And I also invite any other occult groups out there across the board, if you want to help us do magical workings, you know, either together or in your own groups, trying to kick this heroin demon's ass. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like, communities have been, you know, affected by it, you know. So I certainly think that there's this is a great potential project for, you know, reaching across the aisle between a lot of different, you know, magical persuasions, if you will. So yeah, I would definitely encourage anybody that's listening, individually or otherwise, to contact us. You know, we're going to be doing in November here in Rockford. I'm not 100% sure on the date yet, but we are going to be doing a public OEM presentation on emergent magic. So anybody out there that is in the Midwest, around the Chicago, Milwaukee, Madison area of Rockford, Illinois, Northern Illinois, tune in.
Or further.
Yeah, or wherever, if you would just like to come join us. You know, airport's only 90 minutes from Rockford, so we'll be doing a couple different rituals. We're going to be doing some wealth stuff, a couple wealth rituals, and then we're going to be doing the working with the heroin demon thing, and there'll be a quick lecture on emergent magic beforehand. So it'll be like a workshop, you know, where, you know, we talk about a little bit, and then we'll do a couple actual rituals. And I definitely like to encourage anyone who's interested in OM or emergent magic to try and make it out. It'll most likely be a free event, or like suggested donation of a couple bucks or something like that. So yeah, we got that in the works. I'm quite excited about that. That'll be our next public thing that we've got coming up here.
Well, I will definitely keep people informed on the Thoth website, Thoth Facebook, Tumblr. All our social media is going to have it listed as soon as we have a solid date on that, and we'll try to push that out, make sure that everybody knows.
Also, if anyone does use that Mama Spooky or feels compelled to use her, feedback is always great and appreciated.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. That would be wonderful. We'd love to hear back from Spooky Land.
Because we want to know what you learned so that we can use emergent magic. What is learned through magic? We want to know. and it's not, it should never be an ego thing where I'm the only person who has any agency over this entity. The entity gets to fucking decide, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I don't have any control
she's
of
here
that.
for everyone, guys. So.
All right.
That's a good way of putting it. All right. Yeah. Like that.
Anything you guys want to wrap up with? Any further questions we have for Erica while she's here?
I don't know. Nothing I can think of off the top of my head. I think we had a pretty good run tonight, guys. It's good having a talk. It's been a little while. Really liked your explanation for EMK, Erica. Pretty cool. I think we should come back and do it again. Yeah, absolutely. James?
Definitely would love to have you back on the show. And is there a way for people to contact you, social media or anything like that? Or
yes, you're welcome to use me on Facebook, Erica Grimes. You can look me up. My face is on there. You'll see me. ERICA GRIMES. Message me, hit me up.
Yeah, if anybody's got any questions about magic and questions about getting started with magic, and you don't want to just listen to me and James droll on, please shoot questions to Erica. She has plenty of experience at this point. And like I think James best said it when he said you have what was it, James? You said she has more inborn talent than I will ever have in my whole life.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
So it's great to hear your
appreciate
perspective on
that.
stuff.
Yeah.
Right on.
All right, folks.
Yeah, but no, it was great. I'd love to be back. So thank you, guys.
Well, we will definitely do that, and we'll say good night to everybody. And hopefully next time we'll get to do this on time. Everyone had fucking computer issues tonight, including myself. Thank you for joining us, Erica, and we'll catch you all soon. Love you all.
All right, love you guys.
Cheers.
Bye.